Welcome back to the Michigan Sports Media Network. As always, today I'm joined by our Tigers reporter Brad Thompson and our Red Wings reporter James Gullett. Today we got some fun stuff for you. Red Wings, Tigers, a little bit of March Madness, some Pistons talk, Lions talk, pretty much what we always do. But with that being said, I will pass it over to our lead Tigers reporter Brad for our Tigers update after opening day.
All right. Well, thanks, Jace, and James. Happy Friday. Uh, just starting off with the Tigers, I gotta say, seriously, and you know what? I am kind of serious with this. People, and I'm going to call it that. People on Twitter, I swear to God, I am not kidding. We should all have to pass a mental wellness test because the absolute horseshit that I was reading. Let me give you some examples. Oh, Tarik Skubal's going to get a discount. He shouldn't sign here. He's lost his stuff. Okay. Uh, Tigers are going to go, 40 games under 500 with an offense like that. AJ Hint should be fired by the All-Star break. I am not making this shit up. It is gotten to the point where, honestly, Governor Whitmer, President Trump, please get funding to reopen the psychiatric wards because people, you need help. You need help. Okay. Guys, don't panic. All right. That's what I'm saying. This is what I think happens to perhaps maybe the average fan or the below average fan is we get so wrapped up, and we got so wrapped up with the Lions. But guys, we're talking 16 games, okay? In baseball, one game for the Lions is like 3 weeks for the Tigers. 16 games, 162 games. Okay? Sparky Anderson, greatest manager in Tiger history, said, you always judge me, or you always judge a ball club after the first 40 games. Okay? They're getting out of the gate. Schedule makers did them no favors. They're opening up on the road with 3 from the world champions. Okay? Then they come home, they play 3 with the American League champions. Okay? Doomsday is going 0-6. All right. Amazing. They go 3-3. All right. I will take 2-4. Okay. This is not easy. Okay. With Tarik Skubal, everybody, these idiots out there. I mean, you're idiots. Not you two. You're idiots. Look at me. You're idiots. Okay. He missed 2 spots last night, and he paid like a motherfucker for him, okay? He left it wasn't middle, but he paints black like a Picasso, all right? He left one kind of middle out, and he left the other one kind of middle in, okay? Or vice versa. I forgot which ones it was, okay? And you know what? He got tattooed for him. He paid the price for him. He did have a low K rate last night, but this is the world champions, guys. Okay, this is a lineup that possibly could have 1 through 9 guys making the All-Star game. Okay, I mean when you got fucking Shohei Ohtani, Tommy Edman, Teoscar Hernandez, then you got Freddie Freeman. Good fucking luck. Okay, what the Dodgers did do though is they had a game plan coming in, and I think this is going to happen with Tarik all year long. So he's going to have to adjust his. He was coming at him with 4-seam first pitch fastballs. Okay, not every time, but that was kind of what he was going with. And he did that a lot last year, and he had some success. He likes to pound the zone. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, but if you get in a habit of throwing first or 4-seam, which means it goes straighter, 4-seam first pitch fastballs, you're going to get your tits lit up like a Christmas tree, okay? And the thing is Tarik Skubal's not going to get his tits lit up like a Christmas tree, okay? Let's just think that, okay? Chris Feder is the best pitching coach in the game. Tarik Skubal is the best pitcher in the game. Deep breath, people. Deep breath, okay? He will make his adjustments, all right? In the words of Harry Doyle, in memory of Bob Uecker on opening day, all right, the Tigers left a small village on the base paths. All right, 28 runners on the base paths. Colt Keith alone left 8 runners himself on the base pass. James, look that up for me because I might have added wrong, but I had him at 28 with Keith at 8. Okay, that's an average, so I might be wrong there, but that's an average of 3 guys left on base an inning. Okay, that's an aberration. It just is. I don't see that happening again, but what is going to be a problem, and I think this is a problem that's going to haunt them the whole year unless they make some moves here, is they're going to leave guys on base. They're not going to drive runs in. Okay. And my thought process here, and what I go by at least, is it's not how many hits you get, it's when the hits happen. Okay. And no hits happened yesterday with runners on base. One runner here, I believe, maybe, if I'm not wrong, James, again, check me for it. I think they scored 1 run per inning. All right. Could be wrong. I think it was one. Maybe it was 1 inning where it was 2. All right, but look, you can't do it. All right, it's just ridiculous, but it is a concern. All right, the 28's ridiculous, but it is a concern. Hey, Spencer Torkelson picked up where he left off in spring training. You know, the home run was great. Okay, it was awesome. All right, but what he had 3 better at bats yesterday, and the reason why is he drew 3 walks, and usually some of the pitches that were thrown to him he would outside hanger he would swing it, okay, and he would take the K. I believe it was on his third third at bat walk, same pitch that he bit on all last year. He took it, he got on base. Okay, so if he does that, the home runs will come, because let's think about it. He drew 3 walks, right? Okay, I'm not saying they did, but they probably wanted to pound the zone a little harder. Maybe, maybe not. And he made them pay. But if he can have that plate discipline, his OPS, his OBP is gonna go way up, and they gotta have him. All right, it is tremendous, and it is huge if he can do what he did. Again, let's not go on the opposite side of it either. This is 1 game, okay, but he has done well in spring training. Uh, Also, third base. What the fuck ever. All right. I'm going to be patient here, so I don't want to be a hypocrite, but Andy Ibanez, you lead him off. Okay. All right. Whatever. Then he goes 0 for 5. Okay. Again, I'm not going to be that Twitter idiot, but I didn't get the leadoff part. Maybe AJ knows more than me. 0 for 5, I'm just going to say it. Okay. Let's hope that isn't a trend. Kerry Carpenter, I know Margot had 2 hits. Well, what they call in baseball is duck farts, okay? And that duck had some chili before the game because they were 2 fucking duck farts, all right? Now, people are going to go, this is where the idiots are, too. People are going to go, well, he went 2 for 3. He's got to be in the lineup every game. Shut the fuck up, all right? I'm sorry, I'm a little salty because of Twitter today, all right? Shut the fuck up, all right? 2 for 3, all right? He stuck his bat. Okay, I digress. All right, Kerry Carpenter needs to be in this lineup full time. He just does. He's better than what you got. You got to have him in. Okay, he, you got to have him in. All right, yeah, he kills righties. He struggles against the lefties, but he's not going to struggle as much as these other guys out there. Trust me on that one. Believe me, don't crown Margot, because I guarantee you in a week these Twitter fuckers are going to be motherfuckering them. All right. So one thing I did, and one thing I'm going to pound the table for. This will be my last point. Is I could not believe, all right, with nobody on, that Hanafi pitched to Ohtani. All right. He's got him 3-2, and you know what? I could strike out Shohei Ohtani. I could tell my grandkids about that. Stupid. All right. Stupid. You never, down the road, you will say it with me. You never pitch to Shohei Ohtani. And I am dead serious when I say that. Sparky Anderson, all right, back in my day, Sparky Anderson said there's 2 guys that I will never pitch to unless it's the winning run with the bases loaded. All right. One is George Brett, Okay, that was back in the 70s and 80s. And the other one was Ken Griffey Jr. Okay. Now here's what happened with Sparky. He walked, he always walked Junior. All right. In Seattle, he actually fared. I don't know what the reason was. I can't go back that far, but he pitched to him. Okay. Boom. All right. I mean, the pitcher was fitted for a neck brace. All right. I mean, he hit it to Spokane, Washington. All right. Sparky back in there. He says, for those of you guys that question me, that ball hasn't landed yet. Okay. Barry Bonds, you'd give him the Barry Bonds treatment. All right. If he breaks the record by 3 for walks in a season, big deal. He will kill you. Let somebody else. I don't care if it's Tommy Edman or Freeman or whatever. Shohei Ohtani may go down as the greatest baseball player of all time. Think about that. Since 1890, we've had baseball. Since 1870, we've had baseball. And he's going to go down as the greatest of all time? No, don't throw to him. Your funeral. Your funeral. So, with that being said, again, Twitter people, seriously, just there's 800 numbers out there for mental health. Use them. Use them.
Yeah, yeah, I like what you said about that, Brad. And unfortunately, it seems as though that's becoming a trend
Oh
in
God.
Detroit sports, man.
Oh,
Like people are talking about Brad Holmes this way because he didn't sign the fucking free agent that they wanted. People are talking about the Pistons, Asor Thompson. Just in the last few weeks, people have been trade him, let's see what we can get. When a couple weeks before that, he's the fucking best perimeter defender in the league. It's just, I love Detroit sports fans, don't get me wrong, but like unfortunately, it's like every group on earth. There's some dumbasses in there, and they're always the loudest ones, and they make us all look bad. And it's just irritating as shit to deal with. So, yeah,
exactly.
I totally get where you're coming from on that. But with
Oh,
that being said, I'll pass it over to James. You can give your research here that Brad had you do while he was talking. The floor is yours.
Yeah, just quickly for your research purposes, it was not 28 players left on base, it was 29. So it was even worse than you thought it was. And and then just while looking that up, obviously it's been one game, the season's young, but just for comparison's sake, the next most team in the league that left the next most runners on base is the Mets with 22. So we are seven left on base over the next best team. So I am happy that we are at least getting on base because you're not going to hit every home run, of course. So you at least have to. My approach personally, I like small ball, one step at a time, 90 feet at a time. But I'm glad we got that many on base. Obviously, I hope it paid off better in terms of the run column. But I did want to ask you, Brad, what would the Tigers need to do? So, like, let me phrase that like this: the Tigers will win the division if they do what?
well, it's a tough one. The Tigers will win the division if Spencer Torkelson keeps hitting the way he does. Okay. I think he can do it, but I remain skeptical. They'll win the division if Casey Mize lives up to, at least lives up to almost 3/4 of the way to being that number one draft pick. Jackson Jobe doesn't falter because if they can go 1 through 5, pitching is what's going to take this team. It's just what's going to take this team. So that's what'll happen. I mean, they need those things to happen. What they also lastly need to happen is they're going to have to address the third base spot. It's just the way it goes. They're going to have to take some of that, and I don't think it's going to take a lot to spend. They got to take some of that, the minor league, system that they have, number one in baseball, and they're going to have to go get a third baseman because right now on the left side of the infield, you have what we talked about, McKinstry, and you have Ibanez, all right, and then you have Baez and Sweeney. So virtually your left side of your infield is going to do nothing for you. And I've never seen a team where that happens. I just haven't. You're gonna have to make a deal at third base. Go after Alex Baum if Philly seems, if he seems a little, if they fall, he was been on the trading block. Give up a McGoingle if you can, or if you have to. Whoever, go get him. Arenado, that would be my choice. I would go after him. It's not going to cost you much capital in that. So
Okay, then why don't we hit the opposite side for the hell of it? if the Tigers will not win the division if what happens, Brad?
If Meadows and Vierling don't come back and they don't come back 100%, if anybody goes down, in the bullpen, I will go back even further. If Riley Green goes down, all bets are off. All bets are off. It's a wrap. Okay. I mean, our worst nightmares here in Detroit are Meadows done for the season, Vierling out for an extended period of time, Riley Green. And by the way, James, I did check my numbers on that. I apologize. It wasn't just 13 games he averaged in. He's averaging actually 31. So switch the numbers. He's averaging 31 missed games. So, folks, that's what's going to happen. They won't win because of that. And obviously, you can do the reverse. If they only, if they have an injury to Skubal or Flaherty, all bets are off. They'd be for any team. But that back end of the rotation is going to have to step. I don't see this team. If this team does make the playoffs, they will set a record for runs, or for the least amount of runs. I have no faith in about 75% of this offense right now. So that's my answer.
If you're watching this, it's because you love sports. If you love sports, why not show that love with some new gear, like the 2 jerseys behind me? Fanatics has a lot of stuff on sale right now, and if you go down in the description, click the link of whatever team that you want. It'll take you to the Fanatics page, buy some stuff, and we get a small portion. It'll help us out, and you'll get some discounts on some good gear.
All right, good stuff. And I'm glad you corrected that because I did not do the research. I just took your word for it. But I do remember saying even when I was on BT Ballers with you, I'm like, I just feel like it was more than that. So unfortunately, I was right. One of those rare times where I don't want to be. Uh, but one of the times I am very glad to be right is on Spencer Torkelson. He he's looking good again. And don't get me wrong, like I said, your criticism of him last year was fair. He had a bad season, but the year prior to that, he had over 30 home runs, 80 some RBIs. And I understand, especially in Detroit, we've had players have sensational months or two. Chris Shelton comes to mind. Ryan Rayburn was hot for a little bit, but then you pretty much never hear from them again. And Torque did that over a whole season. So, and with him being picked 1-1, I just don't think his talent can just disappear like it looked like it did last year. So I'm very glad he's back. And I did catch just bits and pieces of the box score because I was at the Red Wings game last night, um, which I will touch on a little bit of a combination of the two as well later on. But one thing I see looking at the box score is in the top of the 7th is when Torkelson had his home run. Otani did not hit his until the bottom of the 7th. So Torque got one before Otani. So if you're saying Otani is the best player maybe ever and Torkelson got one before him, I'm just saying. Okay, there's really no correlation, but I just wanted to throw that out there. But it would take less than 2 to 3 games for Otani to put my foot in my mouth on that one. But no, I just had to bring that up for the Torkelson factor. But like you said, he walked several times. Margot's hits were, like you said, not good hits. They were not hard contact. It looks the same in the stat sheet, but it doesn't quite have the same impact on the game. It's not going to rattle a pitcher or make him think twice of throwing to you or anything like that. But I wanted to mention with the Tigers, in totality, we played a much better game than I thought we would. I predicted we'd come into the season 0-3. The Dodgers are the best team in baseball. It's not a knock on the Tigers at all. We just aren't on their level. Like, we're not championship caliber team. I do think we'll make the playoffs, but I don't think we are that level of team yet. And the fact we went toe to toe with them, and we actually had 2 more hits than they had, and it was a surprise. It's as much as I hate to say it, and it doesn't really matter long term on the stat sheet. I would count that as a moral victory yesterday, just for hanging with the defending champs and who 90% of people perceive will be the champions again this upcoming season.
Yeah, and it's a really good point, James. And with that being said, I will pass it right back to you for our Red Wings update and tell us all about the game that you were at in person.
I'd rather not. No, okay. But the one thing I'll touch on my Tiger aspect of the Wings game because, like I said, they kind of coincide. So since we just came off the Tigers, I'll lead with that. At the conclusion of the Wings game, when my wife and I were walking down the corridors to get out of there, they had every other TV at the sections were on the Tigers game, and I would say there was probably 8 to 12 fans around each TV that were just standing there watching the Tigers. So Detroit is an absolute wonderful sports town that even after a Wings game, that the people are just kind of standing around waiting for the parking lot to clear out, but they were watching the Tigers game live because it was on the air there. So that was just kind of really cool to see, and I was one of them watching that final inning. Got to see uh, on Spaceman last at bat, 2 on, 2 out, did not come through. First baseman. Help me out, Brad. I'm spacing on his name.
Freddie Freeman.
No, first baseman for the Tigers.
Oh, Cole
I
Keith.
did. Cole Keith.
Cole
I want to say
Keith.
Cole.
Yeah.
I wanted to say Cole Komet. I'm like, he's not. Nope, that's the tight
Yeah.
end for the Bears.
No, Cole
I'm
Keith.
like Cole Keith. Okay. I saw Cole Keith. Unfortunately, not be able to finish that off, but he's still going to be, one of the guys the Tigers lean on. But to get back to the Red Wings news, uh, it was a game of, I don't want to say two halves because it was more like 70-30, but it was extremely reminiscent. I thought like I was having a deja vu moment because I went to see the Wings live against Columbus last year. Long story short on that game, since it doesn't matter anymore, we fell behind 4-0 in the first period, and the game ended 4-3. And as we were slowly coming back, the building got more electric and more electric and more into it. And I felt like I was at that game again. We fell behind 3-0, made it 3-1, then they made it 4-1, and the building was silent. I was quite disappointed by the turnout. There were, I would say at puck drop, maybe half of the stands full. And this is a game against a team in a wild card spot that we're trying to chase down. It's there's only 11 games left in the season, so I'm like we're down the stretch. This is like a do or die game. This is Hockey Town, and the Raptors are about half full. So I know when you mentioned we're not really Hockey Town anymore. That thought went through my mind as I was sitting there. As the game progressed, some more did show up eventually. I don't know if they were out in concessions or whatnot. But I will say the ones that are there were there when we started our comeback, and we're only down. Even by the time we were only down 2 goals, there were loud and strong "Let's go Red Wings" chants. I know in the past people complained about like Jared Goff chants at LCA and stuff, um, which um, it's not up to me, but I'll say it anyways, which I will officially kill in terms of complaints. Um, Jared Goff has won playoff games here. The Red Wings can't even show up to them, so quit bitching about the Jared Goff chains. And but there was the "Let's Go Red Wings" chants. They were into it, and when we got the third goal to come within one, the place was it almost reminded me of the big house in Ann Arbor. It felt like 110,000 people there. It was loud. It was energetic. It was something I really haven't felt like I've been a part of in a long time, but they were only that way for the last 10 minutes. I feel like if the fans can try to give the team energy, give them an actual home ice advantage, and bring that energy more often, maybe it can make a difference. But at the start of the game, they just did not show out. Alex Lyon started in that to actually talk about the game and saw the atmosphere. And when they announced him, I just leaned over to my wife and I'm just like, yikes, because he has not been playing well. And he let in 3 goals within the first, I think it was 9 shots, but it might have been 10 shots. And he was quickly replaced by Talbot. And once Talbot got in the game, from that point on, we were winning 3-1. So if we had a more stable goalie, um, although I will give him slight credit and walk back, the first 2 goals were his fault. The last goal he allowed was like a breakaway shot. 90% of goalies don't save that, so I'll give him a pass on that last one. But still, the other 2 he should have had, and it kind of deflated the team out the gate. And we need to get a goalie. And I know on a prior podcast, I mentioned we have two goalies in the pipeline. They are not here for whatever reason. I know they're going to say, oh, they're not ready yet, but the guys that are here aren't ready. So let's get the kids some experience at the pro level. Because if they come in here and they're not actually ready and they're not prepared and they lose, guess what? We're losing anyways. So at least they can get a taste of NHL speed, how hard they shoot up here, and all that stuff. More on the job training, so to speak. But what I saw as well last night is how drastic of a difference there was between Ottawa and Detroit in terms of how crisp the passes were, how accurate the passing was, how often shooters without the puck would get open and into shooting lanes. And you could clearly tell. And I picked up some of this from the TV, but when you were there live, it was a different world. There was clearly one playoff team in the arena last night, and it was not the Red Wings. I have been notorious for calling out Yzerman, and I would like a change at the GM because this is year 6 now. We're still not looking like a playoff team. Like I said, we looked completely outmatched against Ottawa, and they're the number 1 wild card. They're not even in the top 3 of the division and all that. So it's not like we played the top team that made us look silly. We played a wild card team that made us look silly. And there's potential for us that we made our comeback because they had a 3-goal lead, so maybe they just were playing defense and let off the gas. I can't tell, to be honest, but at the end of the day, we lost. And going to a little bit back to what excuse me, Jay said and what Brad said about there should definitely be a registration to be on X and to talk sports. You at least have to have the common sense. Because with people, like Jay said, bringing up Brad Holmes and doubting him, people bringing up Skubal, who's the reigning not only Cy Young, but Triple Crown winner. And I had, as no Brad saw, I had this guy on X the other day just completely attempting to chew me out about Yzerman and saying he needs another 2 to 3 years. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not giving Yzerman 8 total years when this is what year 6 looks like. I had a gentleman behind me who, at least he was very cordial, very nice guy to talk to behind me at the game, who was wearing an Yzerman jersey. And even he said he was fed up with it. He took it off and he just wore his plain t-shirt out. He was just carrying the jersey in his hands. So at least this is the wave that's growing, and hopefully soon common sense prevails. But this team is simply not ready. And unless some of these prospects are ready to come up, I'm not going to pretend like I watch AHL Grand Rapids Griffins games, but if they're truly not up here because they're not ready, then they can't be that good of prospects, because the team that we're fielding right now in Detroit is not good. Like we have maybe, in my estimation, 2 to 2.5 NHL level defensemen when the team fields 6. So when you have 4 guys that, I mean, hell, the 3 of us could take over the bottom 3 spots and we'd do just about as well. So if you want to give Yzerman another 2 or 3 years, like that guy on Twitter said, that's your prerogative. To be fair, I don't think he's in trouble. I don't think they're just going to fire him. I think he should, but I don't think he will. But yeah, last night it was a bigger gap than I thought it was going to be, and it's quite upsetting, unfortunately. Even if we do fire Yzerman, I think whoever the new person that comes in will either have to do a total rebuild or whatever his own design is. But with that, I'll get off my soapbox and send it back to you guys.
Yeah, really, really good points there, James. And unfortunately, they took an L, the game that you were there. But seems like that's what the Red Wings are doing this year. And, I like the points you said with Yzerman. It's getting to the point where we should probably move on. It kind of reminds me of like the Troy Weaver situation in Detroit and the Bob Quinn, Matt Patricia situation with the Lions. It just feels like these guys are, well, maybe the Jim Caldwell, Bob Quinn era, not necessarily Matt Patricia, because it feels like everybody likes Iserman. Everybody liked Caldwell. Everybody liked Quinn. They did a pretty good job, but it just wasn't enough to get us over that hump. And it kind of feels like the same thing with Iserman, where he's done a good job, but not a great job. And it's not turning into, well, I see the sour faces, but like let's be real. He's drafted pretty well.
Yes.
He has added guys like Kane. And obviously there are some big deficiencies throughout the defense and the goalie situation, but I don't think it's all bad. Now, do I think we should move on? Yes, but I also feel that it's kind of like Troy Weaver, where he wasn't a great GM, but we should also applaud him for drafting Jalen Duren, Cade Cunningham, Asor Thompson, Marcus Sasser. He drafted all these guys to Isaiah Stewart to just build this team, and then it took another guy to come in, hire his own coach, and similar to what the Lions did. They fired Caldwell, they fired Quinn. Obviously, they brought Patricia in with Quinn, but then they fired them. And we brought in Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. Now look at us, 15-2. Won 2 playoff games last year. Look at the Pistons. They had a decent guy at GM. I would say a terrible head coach. And then they fired them. And then a new guy came in, and with one season, he added a couple solid players, but no elite talents, and they're a playoff team. I think the one thing I would disagree with what you said, James, is I don't think it needs to be a rebuild. I mean, you still have young guys. Your best player's still under 30, so I think you'll be okay for a while. The thing we need right now is to stop. I think don't bring back Kane next year. Try to go for a bigger fish in free agency, and if there isn't one, just move on. I feel like they should kind of try to keep that money, get rid of some of those bad contracts that they've given out throughout the years to guys that are decent but not worth the money, and then it'll be more of a retool. 2 years with a new GM to kind of reconfigure the entire team, add some guys who fit what he wants more. And I think the Red Wings could be a pretty good team, a playoff team, given that scenario. But with that being said, Brad, I'll pass it over to you, and the floor is yours.
Well, my mom always told me never to speak ill of the dead. So that's all I have.
Yeah,
That's
that's
it. That's
valid.
the statement.
That's very valid. I definitely cannot blame you for that one. But with that being said, we will move on to some Pistons talk, which similarly, I went to a Pistons game last week as well as James going to a Red Wings game. And, okay, I got a little bit of a problem here, all right? I will never buy NBA tickets in advance again. I will not do it. I bought my tickets, I think, a month and a half ago, and I was like, let's go see Victor Wembanyama. I haven't seen him, too many times. I think I've seen him play live on TV one time. So I said, I want to go see him in person, some pretty good seats. Out for the season. Okay. I was like, all right, they just traded for De'Aaron Fox. We'll be all right. He's a solid player. Out for the season. Oh, well, I guess at least I'll get to see Cade, right? I mean, that's what I'm thinking as I'm going. I'm walking in to Little Caesars Arena like, you know what? At least I'll see Cade. Look down at my phone. Cade Cunningham is out. Okay. So what I got to see was a bunch of fucking college basketball players, basically, is what it felt like. Dudes are fucking missing wide open layups. The Spurs had 20% field goal percent at halftime. I don't even think they scored 40 points by halftime. It was like one of the worst games of basketball at the NBA level I've ever seen in my life. But with that being said, the Pistons were up handedly from the tip, basically. It felt like, I think it was like 8 minutes in, we were up by 5, and we just never looked back. Marcus Sasser had himself a great game, man. He was a walking bucket. He had a couple like pretty nice ISO moments in the second half specifically, where it just looked like he was the best player on the court, man. Like, Ron Holland looked pretty good. I know his stats don't really say too much, but I think he hit the 1-3 that he shot, if I remember correctly. And he played really good defense in a handful of possessions that I saw him. Isaiah Stewart obviously did what he needed to do. Tobias Harris was a pretty solid leader on the floor without Cade. Duren had a pretty good game as well. I think he ended with like 8 or 9 assists on the night, which is pretty good for a center that plays the way he does. And it just seemed to me like I got to see, obviously I didn't get to see Cade and the stars, but I got to see the depth in the rotational players a little bit more and kind of see what they were about. The one thing I was surprised was Malik Beasley didn't have a great game. I mean, he wasn't bad by any means, but he didn't go drop 30 like he has been, when Cade's been out. But they got it done. They caught the dub. I think the end score, they won by like 20. I don't think the Spurs even broke 100 points on the night. Devin Vassell and Stephon Castle both had solid games, but outside of them, man, it was like, it was atrocious, honestly, dude. 20% from the field, and they had good shots, just missing layups. Like, they look like me at the YMCA out there, man. Like, I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, you guys make millions for this shit. No, but with that being said, I will pass it over to you, Brad, if you have anything to add on the Pistons.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Along Came Polly, but yeah, okay. Let it rain! Let it rain! Kaboom, kaboom. But no, I'll get off on that. I tweeted something out. I can't wait to see the response. But I tweeted something out right before we came on here, and Cade out. Cade out. Okay, all right. Out 2 games. They're just being precautionary. Now out 3 games, and could be Houston. We have a problem. A calf injury that could be. They're not gonna elaborate on it, but that could be. Who knows? But Cavs are not. They're not exactly. They're tough to come back from. They really are. I hope it's just a calf. I don't know if it's anything lower than that, but believe me, I'm no doctor. What I like seeing is you mentioned the depth. And what I think we're seeing here is parts of a championship ball club coming together. And my point is this: if you can have Jaden Ivey, Isaiah Stewart, Ron Holland, Marcus Sasser, all right, 4 guys right there. I believe I cannot pronounce his name. European dude starts with a T, but if that is your bench, that's a pretty damn good bench. Okay, there's your depth. Now they signed Beasley, which would seem logical. Cool. So you've got Beasley, Cade, Sasser. Oh, I'm sorry, not Sasser. Thompson and Duren. You've got some money in free agency. Go get somebody. There's your starting 5. You got to go get him. You got to go get a star, not a superstar, but you got to get that Batman to Cade. Or I'm sorry, that Robin to Cade's Batman. That's what you need right now. All right. And if you can get that, all bets are off here, man. I mean, the Pistons are legit. You've got your bench. Re-sign your own. Get that star. They're not that far off. So that's what I got.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Brad, especially about the calf injury, because I know I'm not no Cade Cunningham, and I don't have an NBA health and wellness around me, but I had a calf strain like 2 years ago, and I'm still not fully over it. So like I can see how that calf could really become an issue. I mean, we just saw Luka Doncic have a similar issue to begin the season, and he was out for quite a while as well. So hopefully, like you said, it's just precautionary, and hopefully they're just resting him to kind of see how long it'll take for him to be completely healthy, and hopefully they don't force him back, since we already pretty much are in the playoffs no matter what happens here. But with that being said, we're going to move on to some more basketball. March Madness, baby. We got some games coming on tonight in just 3 hours. And actually, Michigan State is the first game of the night at 7:10 tip-off. We're not going to talk too much about this because we have our other show with Brad, BT's Ballers. Check that out on our YouTube channel where we go a lot more in depth about March Madness and we talk about, all the different matchups and stuff like that. But Michigan State, Ole Miss tonight at 7:10, and then we have Michigan tonight against Auburn, number 1 ranked Auburn, at 9:40. Personally, it's going to be really, really tough for Michigan to get out of this game alive. I don't see it necessarily, especially with all the turnover issues that Michigan has dealt with this year. Obviously, last game they were a little bit better with that, but they also shot the shit out of the ball. And I'm not going to rely on them to do that again, especially against a team like Auburn. And then Michigan State, Ole Miss is going to be a close one, I think. It could really go either way. I think it's a 2 and a 6 seed, I believe. Ole Miss is a 6 seed. They really, really, really shot the lights out last game. And if they come up against Michigan State and do that, I don't know how Michigan State, survives. But Tom Izzo, Mr. March, you know how that goes. So I could see really either game going either way, but I would say my prediction is Michigan State over Ole Miss and Auburn over Michigan. And then with that being said, go check out Brad's show here, BT's Ballers, for the rest of more in-depth stuff, and then we can just go ahead and move on for March Madness. So next we have Detroit Lions, baby. And while we were on the podcast, we have some breaking news. Are you guys ready to hear this? I got some shit for you. Brad's been cooking up, baby. The Lions have re-signed Kayode Osikwa. Great! I love it. Fucking awesome. Fucking awesome. Cool. Not the Friday evening news that I was hoping for, but it's a solid player, good depth piece. We have re-signed a backup lineman. So, just know Brad is cooking. He's cooking, baby. He's got something in the works. Now, I will say, like we talked about before, people need to calm the fuck down. I mean, Kevin Zeitler wasn't signed until week 2 of free agency, and obviously week 2 of free agency has passed, but they're still good players, man. Like Von Miller. I have been pounding the table for Von Miller every week, every podcast. He's probably the best one available, but there's still guys like John Cominsky, an ex-Lion. He's still available. I'd be down to bring him back at the right price, of course. There's guys like Rayshawn Jenkins, Julian Blackmon, Jordan Whitehead at the safety position that could help us out as really good depth. They started last year for both teams that they played for. So I still feel I was just joking in the way that I gave that because, I just wanted to mess with you guys a little bit. But I feel like people are just a little too bullish right now on this whole Brad Holmes situation with the free agency and everything. And look, even if he doesn't sign anybody, I don't know what's going to happen next season. We don't know. I mean, the guy we draft might end up being the defensive player of the year. Is that realistic? Obviously not. That's probably not going to happen, but it's football, man. You never know. Any given Sunday, anything can happen. With that being said, I would like to have an open discussion about the draft. There's not really too much going on right now in free agency. There's not too much to talk about outside of stuff we've kind of, repeated the last few weeks. But I want you guys to give me your top 3 to 5, maybe, prospects. You don't necessarily have to give me a super long, reasoning behind it. But, like, what would you like at 28? Because for me personally, I'd really like to trade up for Jihad Campbell. Of course, we've talked about that one on the show already. I'm a really big fan of, oh my gosh, his name. Michigan's defensive tackle, Kenneth Grant. There it is. Kenneth Grant, I love him. I'm a really big fan of the Ole Miss defensive tackle, Walter Nolan, as well. And obviously, Nolan probably won't be there at 28. We might have to move up for him as well. But I also wouldn't be mad at an O-lineman. And a guy that really isn't talked about enough is the Ohio State offensive lineman who played guard for them and then moved to left tackle. I just feel for some reason, his name is escaping my brain right now. But I feel like he could be in play at 28, in my opinion. Move him to guard. I think he'd be great. Guys like Gray Zabel could also be there, but there's a big chance he's gone. I don't see, and maybe I'm crazy. I like the kid. I just don't know if I take him in the first round right now. I mean, before the spring or the Senior Bowl, he was like a late second, early third, and I don't know if what he did at the Senior Bowl makes him a first round pick. Obviously, he looked pretty good, but it's just one of those things where I got to see more. And then I would probably say, obviously, there's guys like Mike Green, and those, you don't really know how the board's going to fall, though. But Donovan Izariku, I know I butchered that, but I'm a big fan of his from Boston College. And then, shoot. I'm spacing on the name, so I would just pass it over to you, James, and you can give us your top 3 to 5 prospects for the Lions.
Um, you covered on some of them, which is another thing where, like I said, I love working with you guys, but it doesn't offer some variety since we all know ball. Um, Gian Campbell and would be when we talked about like potentially switching to a 3-4, and once again, because I had some people blow me up about that. If we switch to a 3-4, it would be more so mixing in the 3-4. We're not going to run 3-4 100% of the defensive plays like some people thought I meant. So, but Campbell can do a lot of things. Gian Campbell is a guy I would potentially trade up for. I would not make like a JMO trade to go up like 20 spots for him by any means, but maybe like a Terry and Arnold and just move up 4 or 5 spots, something like that. Potentially, once again, pending on the price. Mike Green is my number one prospect for the Lions specifically. I think what he offers as a player, because I know he has some off the field issues, but what he offers as a player on the field is exactly what the Lions need. Um, I, as we're coming closer to draft time, kind of play around with the idea of if the Lions had, instead of pick 28, let's just say pick 10. We don't have to trade up or anything. We have pick 10. I would still probably take Mike Green at 10. I don't think there are 10 better players for what we need um, like I said, for our team. Because if I'm picking the top 10 players for the Lions, I'm taking away quarterbacks. Like obviously quarterbacks are going to go in the top 10 in this draft, but I wouldn't take one. So Mike Green is high on my list. You mentioned Kenneth Grant as a former Michigan season ticket holder, and I watch all Michigan games. He's a hell of a player. I just don't see a way he's falling, and I don't think he's good enough to be that guy we trade up for. The guard you were talking about that moved to tackle for OSU is Donovan Jackson, if I have the right player. But he's a guy I also had my eye on because I firmly believe in trenches out. I guess unless you're Gian Campbell. But Donovan Davis, like you said, the guard, Booker, the guard from Alabama, I don't think he'll be there. But once again, that's just a third guard. I don't think 3 guards are going to go in the first round, so one of them should be there. Um, I have, I don't want to say high hopes, but those will be the guys I'm looking at. And then to round out the top 5, I unfortunately spacing on his name, but it will be the safety from Georgia. Um,
Malachi Starks.
Yes, Malachi Starks. He would be the other one where I know on a prior podcast we mentioned, of course, we have great safeties with Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph. But if we go get Starks, we can drop Branch back to the nickel, and that will kind of fill a different hole because of the versatility we have in our defensive backs. And he's just a hell of a player, as people know. And if you don't know, go check him out. But that would be my current top 5 players with their fits for the Lions.
Yeah, and I totally get that. The one thing I would say about Malachi Starks is I think if we draft him, we're not going to re-sign Kirby, because based on all of the depth that we have added at corner, I think if we were to draft a safety that high, it would be so that we can save that $25 million a year and let him go and then try to, get a different position. But I wouldn't hate it. I just do think that would be a bit of a it'd even be a little bit more confusing to me than the Gibbs selection at the time, which obviously that one worked out really well. But I would just go, okay, we'll see how that works out. You know what I mean? I think it would be like a couple years down the road, it would really, really come to fruition. But the thing I forgot to mention is trading down, I think, honestly, is my number one thing in this draft because you know what? A lot of people are talking about this edge class as if it's not that great. And yeah, it's not. I mean, you don't have fucking, Myles Garrett in this draft class or anything like that, or an Aiden Hutchinson or anything. But you've got Abdul Carter, who's pretty damn good. I mean, he's not on that elite tier of prospect, but he's pretty close. And then after that, you have guys, and this is the thing for me. this draft is very deep in round 2 and 3. I think you're going to find a lot of good players in round 2 and 3 that you normally wouldn't get there. Just because I think in the first round there it's not that heavy, if that makes any sense. Like we have Abdul Carter, Mike Green, James Pierce, and Shamar Stewart, Michael Williams. There's probably 4, maybe 5 defensive ends or edges that get picked in the first round. I guess if you add Jihad Campbell in there too, but I'd consider him more of an outside linebacker type. But that's 4 or 5, first rounders in this draft class, and only like maybe 3 will be in the top 15. What I think is this interior defensive line class is super deep, like ridiculously deep. One of my favorites is Jamari Caldwell. We could probably get him in the 3rd or 4th round. He's a big, twitchy guy, can play nose, can play 3-tech. But I just feel if we traded down to, let's say, I don't know, pick 35, and I'm just throwing out a number. I'm not even sure what team that is off the top of my head. But let's just say we move down to 35, move 7 spots, gain like a 3rd rounder, and give up a 5, I don't even know, a 5 or 6 or whatever the case, whatever it would take to make that happen. Then we can have a pick, let's say pick 35, pick 60, pick, 92 or whatever the case, and then pick 102. Then we have 4 to 5 picks in the deepest part of the entire draft. And that's what I would be going for. Because then you could draft 2 edges, 2 defensive linemen, and still draft an offensive lineman. Because in the second round, I love guys like Princely Unman Milen, I think is how you say it. And then JT Tuamalo from Ohio State, I think is a dog. I think he's better than Jack Sawyer. I would run to the podium in the second round for him. And then you got guys like Jared Ivey and Josiah Stewart and Jordan Birch. There's a ton of guys that can be gotten in the second round. So just food for thought. Trade down really is my number one. But again, that's not always possible. You have to have a partner. But with that being said, Brad, I will pass it over to you. And you can give us your top 5 prospects.
All right. I mean, Jesus Christ, Jace. I mean, I wouldn't want to stand in line before you at the fucking old country buffet or whatever the fuck you call it. Golden Corral. All right, because all the goddamn prime rib would be gone. All the fucking mashed potatoes. You left us with fucking nothing, bro. Kidding. No, there's some names I'd obviously I wanted. But first thing is to trade down or to trade up to get Campbell. There's no doubt about that. Love Kenneth Grant. Think he hasn't even scratched the surface of his potential. I mean, what keeps standing in my mind is how he ran that one running back down. It was like 30, 35 yards. D tackles don't do that. Okay. So if he learns, I mean, if he gets better, like we said, with if he's a rotational guy the first year, dude, he's going to come back the second year, be a goddamn stud. One guy I've seen, and I thought he was top 10, but now I see him on a lot of draft boards. I see him fluctuating. Is a Shamar Stewart. Love if he was there, but I'm not sure he would be. His teammate Nick Scorton, absolutely. You may hear me.
We can hear you now, yeah.
Okay, sorry, it's a phone call. Just people calling. I tell them not to. All right, where did I leave you guys off at?
You said Nick Scourton last.
Nick Scarton, his teammate. I'm high on 2 safeties, but I think you make a great point on Starks, and also Emma Kukiwara from South Carolina. I think he's going to be a dude. But names I'll throw out there that I think Derek Harmon, from Oregon, I like him a lot. Then if you want to look at corners, I mean, the way we had it go last year, I'm sorry, but I still would like to add more depth. I mean, Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky, who can fly. You got Azare Thomas from Texas, who's a shutdown corner. And then something that this is why maybe you can trade down, or maybe this is just Brad Holmes doing what he does. But you got a receiver sitting out there that I've seen, and that's Luther Burden III from Missouri. I mean, it's not something that I would be like, all right, I'm going to trust you. But I mean, if you're getting him, let's say if you trade down, that's a value pick right there. I'm not sure I would do it at 28. but it's definitely a guy that I would consider. So yeah, but when you're saying back to Brad, I'd love for him to trade up or trade down. But if they're stuck at 28, I know that stuck's the wrong word, but I think there's definitely some great guys. Oh, one guy. This is the one guy I did not bring up, and I think this could be the home run. Tyler Booker from Alabama, inside interior lineman. Um, the dude's just good, man. He's just good, and if we're down there if we're down there at 28 value, I mean, this guy's been up and down the boards as well. So that's really all I got.
Yeah, and that's really good stuff there, Brad. And one thing, this class being so deep at interior defensive line, like you brought up with Kenneth Grant, yeah, he might be a rotational player year one. But guys, I posted this on Twitter. We only have 3 or 4 defensive tackles on contract next year. Okay, we don't have a secondary starter. We have McNeil, Wingo, Martin, and I don't know how I'm forgetting the other one. But Reeder's gone, so we need another nose. We need more guys that can play rotation year one and then can come and start year two, and that's Kenneth Grant exactly. I also think there's a lot of second, third round guys that we could get, to put in that rotation year one and then start year two. Now we got our defensive tackle room completely shored up for the next couple years. And I think this is the perfect draft for us. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but excuse me. It seems like our needs align with the draft every year since we got Brad Holmes. Like year one, obviously we needed everything. So we just got studs somehow. It seemed like almost at every pick. And then year two, we really needed a wide receiver. We really needed some, defensive line help, and we got that. And now this year we're looking at a super deep defensive line group, and that's our biggest need. So, but with that being said, James, I'll pass it back over to you if you got anything else to add.
No, not really. The only thing I wanted to potentially throw in there is there are some later second, early third round guards, such as like a Jared Wilson from Georgia, that I would not mind adding. So as much as I love Booker and he's one of my top 5 suitors for the Lions, we don't have to go get that guard in round one. There is some later depth. I know Chase mentions like the interior D line depth. There is some, I wouldn't say as much because I think it falls off after like the third round, but there's some interior O line depth in this draft as well.
Yeah, and I would totally agree with that, and that's kind of why I'm in the camp of trade down if you possibly can, because then we can add more picks within that, top 100 and really load up. And that's a good point about offensive line, because I wouldn't draft an offensive lineman in the first round this year personally, depending on, I guess, how the board falls. Now, if there's not a defensive lineman that's worth a first round pick, I guess you just go best player available, but there will be a defensive lineman worth a first round pick when we're selecting. So I would feel pretty confident that will be the pick for Brad. And then, like you said, we can get an offensive lineman second or third round, kind of interchangeable. And I think this is a perfect draft because, like you said, interior O line and interior D line is super deep, and that's exactly what we need. And that'll help us out going forward because we don't need a guy that can necessarily start day one next season. We need a guy that can take over if Graham is terrible, or if Mahogany's terrible, or if either one gets hurt, or best case scenario, they both play well next year, and then we get rid of Graham the year after. Now we got a shiny new toy to put at his spot. And then we don't have to worry about, making any moves in the offseason to shore that up. But with that being said, now we will move on to our last piece of the day. Some NFL news, nothing really too crazy. But Russell Wilson signed with the Giants, which I think we called like day one. I feel like we were on that pretty quick. We called that Justin Fields to the Jets, Sam Darnold to the Seahawks, all types of stuff. So our hit rate has been pretty good on the show lately. But some other quarterback carousel stuff, Aaron Rodgers still does not have a home. I personally still think he ends up in Pittsburgh. I don't see a way he goes anywhere else. If Pittsburgh doesn't sign Rodgers, what are they doing? I don't know who's going to play quarterback for them. Mason Rudolph, like that's all they got right now, man. And I don't see Mike Tomlin being happy rolling out Mason Rudolph next year. I can't see that. I could see them trading up for to draft a quarterback, but even then, this is a bad class. I don't think I would really want to hang my laurels on that. And then last but not least, there's some good names available still in free agency that the Lions necessarily don't need that we haven't really talked about yet. You know, guys like Keenan Allen, Marcus Williams, Justin Simmons, those are all Pro Bowl level players, and Marcus Williams is only 28. So, like, I'm kind of, surprised these guys are still on the board. Keenan Allen, I wonder what his money, his ask is, but if I'm the Lions, I might give him a call, like we've talked about before, James. Anybody for the right price, man. If he'll take $8 million a year, $10 million a year for 1 year, why not bring him in for one season? And I mean, obviously, if it's a money issue and we can't, then that makes sense. But at this rate, we're a Super Bowl team, and we're going to take everything we get to win that Super Bowl. So, but with that being said, I will pass it over to you, Brad, and you can, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I was going to say, and I meant to say it in the last time I spoke in that part, and it speaks to what you were talking about. I think that Holmes and I think some other teams are probably doing this. They're probably going to look see how their draft flows. They're going to fill now with the draft, and then they're going to say, okay, who's out there? We got this guy in the draft, but we didn't address this situation. So who's left out there? Okay, so I don't think that he's done signing free agents. And also, you got to remember, you got the June 1st cuts too. So there's a lot of options out there. I don't think he's gonna, he's gonna let the draft fall where it is, sprinkle some in, and then Rodgers has got to go to Pittsburgh, or else shit, I want him to go to Pittsburgh because I'm so goddamn sick of him. And I know how you feel, Jace, but I just maybe that would get him off the Pat McAfee show because McAfee swings off his nuts like fucking Tarzan. So, but it's going to be interesting there. I thought Russell could go back to the Steelers. I was surprised. I thought Jameis Winston could have gone there. Now all of a sudden you've got Winston and you got Wilson there, so that's interesting. As far as anything else goes, yeah, I guess Minnesota's going to be rolling with JJ, which could be home run or it could be an absolute disaster. So, in free agency with the other stuff there's really no names that I would say goes to any team right now. I don't have any predictions. Just to recap what I said, just now, I think this draft will dictate where the rest of the free agents go.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, Brad. And that kind of brings up what I was actually going to talk about next. Kirk Cousins. He is likely going to play for Cleveland next year. And it sounds like they are going to trade him. The Falcons will trade him to Cleveland after the draft because he has decided to wait until after the draft to open his no trade clause. So he doesn't want a similar situation to last year where he goes to Cleveland and then they fucking draft Cam Ward or something like that. But just a little tidbit to add to what I already said. But with that, James, the floor is yours.
I think Rodgers to Pittsburgh is essentially a done deal. They're the last quarterback needy team that don't have a high draft pick. So, like, obviously, it's one of the worst kept secrets in football that Cam Ward's going number one. So, knowing that, Pittsburgh's real only options that late in the first are either to roll with Aaron Rodgers or go draft Jackson Dart. Or maybe they do both, and they can have Dart learn from Rodgers for a year, like a Alex Smith Mahomes situation. Not that Dart's Mahomes. And then there are a lot of good players, and I touched on it before, but it was just when you and I were here, so I'm curious on Brad's thoughts. Once again, as we said, for the right price, I would kick the tires. And if I was the Lions, I would go call Nick Chubb and see if he is willing to sign a small short-term deal, like like 2 to 3 million. I'm not talking big bucks. If he's willing to take it, we can let him rehab, just mix him in whenever. Obviously, the running back position gets hurt all the time, so just use him sparingly because I will say as I was waiting for my turn in the segment, for some reason a chill went down my spine thinking about Chubb and said, you know what? If we don't get him, I bet Philly does. Because they just sign everyone they can to run behind that line. And then it will be Saquon Barkley and Nick Chubb in the backfield. So that to me, and there's been no reports and no nothing linking him, but that's just what they do. So let's go get him before they do, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, my apologies for laughing mid point there, but I spend too much time in high school classrooms apparently because when you said there, yeah, sorry, you said when a chill went down my spine thinking about Chubb, I just couldn't handle it. I don't know. Sorry. But anyway, so I'll pass this over to Brad. The floor is yours.
I mean, how the fuck do you follow that? I mean, it's it's the yeah, it is. So, uh, hey, I mean, I gotta watch how I'm put this now all of a sudden. Nick Chubb. I mean, for 1 year, I mean, with the cap, it's if you just go 1 year for $10 million. I mean, do we really know how Monty's going to come back from what he's got? And once you start to get some flats on some tires, you can patch them up, but they never really stay. They stay, filled with air. So, I mean, it's out there. I think he'll be a guy that signs after the draft. I still think that if Chicago doesn't get Ashton Genty, that they're going to take Chubb. They're going to sign Chubb after. I think they could move up with Chicago. I think that or with Las Vegas. I I think that it's either. I mean, they want him bad, and I don't know if you guys saw his pro day, but Jesus Christ, I was even gonna say, you know what? Fuck it, Lions, man. Fuck it, because right now, after as far as what everything I see, Abdul Carter's the best player in the draft. Okay, and then is Jonte. I mean, he call me crazy, and I usually am, but wow, man, that is a full complete back right there. I do think the Steelers could run with a Kenny Pickett type and go after Jackson Dart. I'll go on record right now saying he might not be a franchise quarterback, but he's going to be the best quarterback in this draft class. I really see under a Lane Kiffin offense, I really could see him making a big impact. I mean I'm not high on Cam Ward. I'm not that high on Shadur Sanders because he's not mobile, and I just there's just something there that just doesn't jive with me. So yeah, I'm just gonna sound like a broken record here, but these guys will fall after the draft. So, but Chicago's gonna get a Chubb, or they're gonna get Gente. I mean, I'm almost ready to put that. Like they say on 97.1, I'm almost ready to shoot the boot. They're gonna get one of those guys, either through the draft or through free agency. So that's all I got.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, especially on the Chubb front because this is such a deep running back class. I could see him. I could see him just being like, this draft class is so good. I don't want to be a Kirk Cousins type and think I'm going to start somewhere and then they draft somebody in the third round who's better than me. But I would love to have Nick Chubb in Detroit because I feel like even with Montgomery being a similar style, I still think Chubb is different than Monty. So like you could put three running backs in the backfield. You could fuck it. Wing T, baby. T formation. Run it down their throats. Stop playing around. Like we got to get Ben Johnson did too much cute shit, so we're gonna come in and run power football. Like, no, but I just feel it wouldn't be a bad move at all. But again, it's all about the money. How much does he want? But yeah, I do think the Bears would be a good fit for him. I think there's a plethora of teams, honestly. Maybe the Raiders as well, somebody we mentioned for Gianti. Because think about it, they don't really have a backup. Even if they draft Gianti, I would still try to go get Nick Chubb because then you kind of like a Gibbs situation, Chubb could be your Monty. Just something to think about. But with that being said, that's all we got today. We appreciate you guys for watching. Once again, I am here with Brad Thompson at BT8Ball, and I am here with James Gullett at Gullett_James. You can find me at JaceOSweet, and all of us at MI Sports Media and at misportsmedia.com. We appreciate y'all for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.